Okay, you could start whenever.
Welcome back to another episode of the Born Again podcast. I'm Katie.
And I'm Joe.
What are we talking about today, Joe?
We're talking about how atheism is different than we thought it was going to be.
Yes, and how are we talking about atheism? How are we defining atheism?
Okay, yeah, so I guess we're just talking about atheism in the sense that we don't believe that there's a higher power God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like how we as Christians viewed just anybody who was not religious or who was not Christian.
Yeah.
We'd call them atheists.
Yeah.
And that's how I think that we're going to be talking about it today.
Right. So I think when we were Christian, we had a lot of ideas about what we thought atheism was like and what we thought atheists were like.
Yes. I don't really necessarily remember anybody teaching us about atheists or whatever, but
not.
Like I think for some reason, well, I mean, for good reasons, I guess as a Christian, I was sort of scared of atheists. Like,
yeah,
I didn't want to talk. I wouldn't necessarily want to talk with one. I thought that they were kind of closed-minded and just wanted to argue, I guess.
I always thought that atheists were like really mean.
Yeah, really mean.
You know, which is kind of funny. I mean,
super
I guess
cynical and like hated everything.
Yeah.
Right.
I pictured that. It seems so silly now to say this, but I kind of imagine that atheists were all kind of depressed and like had nothing better to do with their life than to like persecute Christians.
Yes, exactly.
And like they were just sad and lonely and they like just sit at home and they read their internet forums about atheism and then they like try to persecute Christians. Yeah.
That's kind of true.
Yeah, I suppose there are people who are like that. You know?
Yes, but like you kind of view the whole of atheism or whatever you thought that was as just a bunch of like really mad people who just want to fight Christians, who have nothing to live for, have no purpose, and just like are closed-minded, kind of like living in the world in sin. Yeah, they're bitter.
Yeah.
All of that. And you kind of think that it's its own like religion.
Yeah. Well, so I thought that atheists were so against Christianity because they were like actively choosing to reject God.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, an active.
Like I thought that they
choosing.
Almost as if they believed that God existed, but they were like, screw you, God. I don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah. You know? An active defiance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I feel like because of that, it kind of seemed like another religion or another group that you can be a part of. And like that, I think that was marked by, which I heard my parents say before in yours, that like it takes way more faith to be an atheist than a Christian.
I said that.
Yeah.
I feel like I told that.
I probably
to
said
atheists who would talk to us like at Crew when we were trying to proselytize them.
Yeah.
And they'd have questions. I would say like, well, personally, I believe it takes way more faith to be an atheist than it takes to believe that God exists.
Yeah, that's such a line.
It is.
You know what I realized just now is when you say those kinds of things, it kind of makes you feel better about what you believe. Like, and it makes me kind of wonder, like, if it's making me feel better, then I must have felt a little bit bad before. Or like, it was like almost like I did have doubts, but never really realized it.
Yeah.
Like, it was like I was justifying. I was saying that thing to myself, not to the person I was talking to.
Oh, I see what I mean? It like comforted you to say that and to believe that because it makes you feel like I do have it right.
I have faith, but I'm also logical because this one takes less faith.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
like I am a person who lives in reality.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a side thought, but like, yes, we always would say it takes more faith to be an atheist than a Christian.
Which I think like, now, looking back at things, we kind of just had the whole like framing of what we thought atheism was in our mind was wrong. It was skewed. And I think actually it was Sarah, who's on our podcast 2 episodes ago, who said to us the other day that atheism is less like changing the channel from Christianity to atheism, and it's more like you're turning off the TV.
Mm-hmm. I know. We like the other night we're looking through a bunch of Christian / atheist, I guess, memes, which we do from time to time because they're just fun.
Yeah.
And then we were, I don't know, like we came across that concept, and I forgot that when we first started recording this podcast, I really wanted to talk about how different it was to kind of become an atheist or just become a Christian than I thought it was going to be. Like I really thought that it was like a new belief system or that like people didn't have any reason to feel this way or to be this way. And it really was just like that of turning off the TV.
Yeah.
Like you weren't switching necessarily sides just to switch sides, but you were like, whoa, okay. Like kind of like stepping out of this bubble. Yeah. Almost, you know?
Because it's a lot less of you're not like exchanging your Christian beliefs for new beliefs. I mean, in a way you are. Because at first you're believing that a God created everything, and now you're believing whatever other alternative you want to choose, Big Bang, who knows, multiverse theory, whatever, that doesn't matter. So, I mean, I guess in a sense you kind of are going from one belief to another one, but it's completely different. It's like, as an atheist, I don't believe anything for belief's sake. I like don't have faith in anything. I just see evidence, and like based on the evidence I have a new understanding, so it's super different. But as a Christian, I didn't understand that distinction at all.
Yeah, I think it's even difficult to describe right now. I think as I'm like thinking about it, it kind of helps to talk about those analogies, like the one with the TV, and like, because I feel it really, it had this opening feeling, that you didn't realize that you were being like closed.
Right.
But then a million different possibilities like opened once you like just stepped out of that Christian bubble.
Totally.
It was strange. I saw this other meme, this picture online by an artist. If anybody knows what this is, like, please send it over. But where these people, these stick figures, and they're all kind of walking under umbrellas, and under the umbrellas, rain was pouring down on them. But the one guy in the middle, like, had kind of partially closed his umbrella and looked up, and it was clear. Like, everybody else was living under this downpour, and they were covering themselves as like with a downpour, and the person was like, hey, we don't even need this covering because the covering is making the downpour. It's giving us all of the problems. I
love that.
And I really love that, because a lot of things about coming out of Christianity for me were realizing that I had given myself so many problems that didn't exist. Like I had given myself, like that I was bad, and that I had sin, that even sin existed at all, like that I needed to be saved, that there was a hell. All of my fears and all of the things I felt bad about were inside of this bubble.
Totally. That's a really good point. Sin is a great one, because as a Christian, I thought that atheists were atheists because they wanted to sin more. Like, they wanted to sin and not feel bad about it. And like, really, atheists don't think about sin at all. It's not that Christians try not to sin and atheists like sinning. It's that, like, as an atheist, sin isn't even a concept.
It's not an obsession.
Like, it's not an obsession. It's not even something to think about, because it's just like so irrelevant, The Christians are obsessed with it, and they think that atheists are like directly against it, but really it's just like, it's not even on the table. It's not even something to think about anymore.
That's a lot of it too, is like things just aren't on the table anymore,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like everything isn't on the table anymore. Sometimes, like, when I think about the Christian things I cared about, or the questions people would give me, like, about Christianity, it's kind of like, I don't know, why do you care?
Yeah.
Why do you care so much?
Right.
Like, you're hurting yourself by this.
Yeah.
Stop, like, worrying about all of the times you think about lust.
Right.
It's just like, I think, like, a lot of times, like, once you realize that those things, like, aren't there, or like that it's like okay or like normal, then like you stop being so obsessed with them.
Right. Yeah, totally. I mean, that we've talked about that on other episodes too, but it's, for us at least, it became so much easier to not sin once we were not Christian anymore. Like for me, like, not looking at porn after Christianity, it's like, oh yeah, I can just like choose not to do that. It's not a big deal. But as a Christian, you're so freaking like obsessed with your sin and always thinking about what's sinful and what's righteous and all that it like, that umbrella analogy is perfect.
I know,
I keep
really
thinking
good.
of that, and that's really good.
I know. When I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's beautiful. I love this illustration. So quickly depicted exactly how I felt to leave.
Becoming an atheist made us realize that all of these problems we were struggling with were like self-inflicted problems that just simply don't exist for people who don't believe in a Christian way.
You know what else it's like is like how as a teenager, you can be like so obsessed with like drinking and like smoking. And then everybody always says, oh yeah, once you turn 21, you don't care about it anymore.
Yeah.
It's like we turned 21.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it kind of is.
And we're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like we can do all that stuff. I don't really want to do it
Right,
anymore.
exactly.
Or, you know?
Yeah. I think it was in maybe one of the books we've been reading recently, but it was talking about how like, if you're very, very against something, you aren't free from it.
Oh,
you know?
yes.
So like as a Christian, you're so obsessed with your sin and so against your sin. And like, even if you're not sinning, it's still like kind of controlling you. You know, you don't have freedom from it because you're so preoccupied with being against it.
Yeah.
Even.
And a side note, like to play the devil's advocate, like I realize and I really try not to be so against Christians because like, if you continue to talk about Christians in a really like negative way and like think that they're so horrible or you hate them and like whatever, like you're not free from your background.
Right.
You know, if you like, we need to make sure that we're growing past that. It's like obviously okay to feel that way in the beginning because it's like totally valid.
It's inevitable too.
And inevitable.
Yeah.
But like I think I like to think about, okay, my future, like in what ways could I be more free from this? And it's like to have a really healthy relationship with Christianity and like the people around you who are in it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's a really good thought. And I feel like we could have a whole episode about just that.
Yes.
But yeah. I agree.
Okay. So how do we view the people who are atheists differently? You know?
Completely differently than I used to. Now actually I was saying this to you earlier. I see atheists and Christians the same now. Like I see everybody.
Oh yeah.
the
Like
same.
It's just a person.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when I was Christian, I think there was some subconscious part of my brain that if I met someone for the first time, I really wanted to answer the question, are they Christian or not? You know, like that was kind of a distinction to me. Like, oh, I just met Eric. And he's a Christian, or I just met Eric and he's an atheist. Like that, I would know that about like everybody in my life.
Yeah, you would try to know. Yeah, you kind of separated them.
Yeah,
into what? What do you think they separated into? Oh, the sheep and the goats.
You love the sheep and the goats. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so like now there's no distinction. That's just like a label I don't need to put on a person.
Oh yeah.
I don't care if you're Christian. I don't care if you're atheist. I don't care if you're Muslim. I don't care if you're a woo-woo spiritual weirdo. It just doesn't, it's irrelevant, which is like a super freedom, you know? It's one of those things that you don't really even realize that you're doing when you're Christian, you know, like labeling someone either way. But when you come out, it's like the best feeling of freedom. I can just meet people and think whatever I want about them. I don't need to label them either way.
Okay, sorry, I had a thought in the
You
middle
got really
of that,
excited.
obviously.
Yeah.
But you were saying earlier today that you don't realize how much mental space is being taken up.
Yes.
And that's something I really, really felt.
Yeah.
It was like a weight off my brain. Like, whoa, I was like keeping track of so many things.
Right. Also,
and like labeling so many things. Like
not even just labeling other people, but like the amount of mental space I have as an atheist in general is incredible.
That's what feels most free,
That's
probably.
got to be one of the best parts. Like I don't think about sin anymore. I don't think about if the actions I'm doing are glorifying to God or not, which when I was Christian, that's like all I would think about.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that was my goal, was to be like constantly thinking about that.
Well, I mean, last week we talked about prayer and like that's in a way you constantly praying right throughout the day. That's like a huge mental space.
Totally. So that is a huge relief. I mean, other things too, like not having to pray, take up time praying, not like constantly kind of keeping track of if I've done enough like devotional time or Bible reading. Cause that was something I thought about a lot too, was, you know, have I spent enough time with the Lord today, or have I spent enough time in the Word?
Me too.
Yeah. All of that stuff. It's just like my brain has a little more space to breathe.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
It feels great.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to the people. I think I like that what you were saying about how you don't even need to separate people anymore. And because I had that same feeling, I can't exactly describe it, but I passed a girl once walking down the street and I might have said this before, but she looked like really cool. She looked kind of goth and she had her hair dyed black. And I've always liked that style, but I always felt like I feel like if I was a Christian, I had this moment of thinking, if I was a Christian, I would be a little bit intimidated by this girl because I feel like she would be maybe like an atheist. I don't know why, but based on her looks.
She looked like
and
an
I would
atheist.
feel like if I had to tell her that I was Christian, I would feel so uncool. But like I would be like, oh, but I really value my faith. And I don't know. And I was in this moment, I kind of thought like I would have all of these like judgments about it and like placing and ranking her or whatever in my life. And now I had this sense that I could walk by her and like almost feel like completely equal. Yeah. And I can't describe it, but it was the feeling of the like equality that made me realize how much I like either felt inferior or better than somebody.
Oh, that's a really
like
good point.
the judgment of it. I really felt like a true sense of equalness with humans.
Yeah.
In that moment. And then I started to notice it everywhere else. Like that we are all, I don't know, we're just all beings, human beings. And that really helped with a lot of other judgments I had for like different groups of people. Like, you know, people who like, I don't know, the classics, like gay people or people who wanted to have abortions or like, you know, like all like that stuff, like those judgments that you hold against people or people who lived with their boyfriends or their girlfriends or whatever.
Just think about how many, it's kind of overwhelming how many judgments we had about different people because of course, like, that's a huge benefit when I think about, or if I meet a gay person or if I meet a transgender person or whatever, it like anything at this point, I don't have to think of them any differently. I don't have to have any like red flag popping up that's saying to me they're sinning or like they're not Christian. You should try to convert them.
And even if you're kind, like even if you're the type of Christian that's like, but I love you, like you give out so much love, but there's like that tiny thing in your brain that's like making it kind of painful to live.
Right.
It's almost like now I'm kind of like, phew, I don't have a religion that's telling me how I need to feel about this person. Like that I need to like have some kind of like core belief that they're wrong in my body. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Because that was so much of what it was like to be a Christian. Not even, I mean, and that's not even exclusive to people who are, and I'm saying this in quotes, like sinning or non-Christians. Because as a Christian, if I met another Christian, I would also have tons of judgments on them, like trying to figure out how serious they were. Like if I considered them to actually be saved, like, you know, how much they read their Bible, all of that. Like there was all these little judgments happening and all these kind of black and white, whatever assessments I needed to make out of everybody in my life that it was, you don't realize how exhausting that is until you step out of it and you find out how beautifully freeing it is to just like be with people without having to think anything about them. Yeah. What a relief.
It is.
It's such a relief.
Yes.
I mean, I'm trying to like keep that up even now with Christians. I think like that it's kind of come full circle, you know, now that we're atheist on the other side of our faith. And I tend to maybe now have more judgments towards Christians than I do towards people who are like sinning in the world, you know, obviously. But even so, I feel like I'm more compassionate toward Christians now than I was before because I don't need to rank them at all.
Well, I think the thing that makes it, I was just going to say too, that like, that doesn't mean we're perfect at like not judging people.
Of course not.
Because when you see a person, you kind of like think, you know, something about them. Like, oh, they like, I don't know, they're a photographer or like, oh, I can tell they're a model or like, oh, they work in a grocery store. I don't know. But like the feeling is like so non-eternal and you're like so ready to be like proven wrong, you know, like I think that when you're judging someone like based on that you have the ultimate right and that if you don't believe like I believe, then you're going to go to hell. It's just a different type of judgment, like no matter what, you know, because like even if you look at someone and you're like, I don't really like them, you're kind of like, nah, who cares? Because it doesn't mean because you feel that you know something differently that they're going to go to hell or you're going to get a better reward. You know, and I think that makes the judging like more normal. I think everybody should work on not judging people, but I feel that there's like a huge weight that comes off of your brain when you're not eternally judging someone or kind of like symbolically sending them to hell in your mind, you know?
And it's kind of interesting because that feels like a huge relief now, but I kind of think it took a little while to feel that way. Yeah. Like our brains were so programmed to make those judgments constantly that it's like totally unconscious. So like, it's not like when we first left the church we instantly were like totally open and free. You know, I think it took a little bit of time for our thinking to change about some stuff. But yeah, now it's amazing now. I really, really love feeling connected to humankind. And I think that as an atheist, I feel so connected to humankind because I don't have any beliefs that like fundamentally separate me from anyone else. You know, we're all on the same page together.
I know it is. I think that a lot of the feelings I have or like the perceptions that have changed now have been surprising to me because I feel that connection as well. And it's weird because like I almost like have a better connection, but then sometimes I'm like, why is it this way? It seems backward. Like, but it makes sense like that you're kind of like picking apart, you know, what people believe in.
Yeah.
And
you kind of, as a Christian, you kind of have to care about that stuff.
Yeah.
And like as an atheist, it's not that I'm deciding not to think about it. It's just like, I don't care what religion a person is. It doesn't affect me, and it like shouldn't affect me. And, you know, I should just want them to be happy and enjoy their life, period. Yeah.
So back to more about the people, I feel like I've noticed that atheists are like, I don't even like way more loving and compassionate than the Christians I had known. And I feel that I had known really, really good, compassionate Christians.
Yeah.
I think towards the end of our Christian walk together, like we had met some of the best Christians I'd ever experienced. And I remember that's why we went to the church we did. And I really, really loved these people. And I thought that they were amazing examples. And I still think that they are. But what was so surprising is coming out of it and realizing that there's so many people who have that type of compassion, but without any kind of God to back them up.
That
makes
surprise.
it seem so much stronger. It's like they don't even need anybody to tell them that. They're just doing it like from their own,
like the goodness coming
of
out
their
of them.
actual heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's what surprised me so much. And it surprised me too, because I was like, I never thought that I was even, you know, assigning that to a person, that I would feel that only in my religion or in a religious place could you be good, because that seems so like, I don't know, it seems so brainwashy, or like that's something I wouldn't believe, you know, like
you're saying
that,
you like didn't realize that you were even thinking that way as a Christian.
Yeah, I didn't realize. Yes, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
And that I like that you could only be good as a religious person.
Right.
You know, I didn't even realize I was thinking that way until I got out, and then I was surprised by the goodness that I saw. And that surprise feeling made me think, oh my gosh, like how much have I been indoctrinated, or how much have I been like using up my mental capacity, you know, with this thought, with these judgments and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But
the
anyway.
surprise was really like kind of jarring almost. It surprised me that we got surprised in a way, you know, like it was like all these things were such surprises.
I think coming to the awareness of how much you've been like thinking in this other way, I think the awareness has been like key to changing and healing. But I've just been surprised, I guess.
Yeah.
I've already said that, by like how good everyone is, and like just even the friends we met here in Portland, how loving they were. Like
that was
it was not supposed to be that way. Yeah.
I mean, I eventually was really surprised at the compassion I felt within myself too. You know, because like we've talked about it before, but when we first left the church, we both kind of expected that our life was going to get worse, or I expected that maybe I'll get more selfish or like less caring about people, because that's what you're taught in church, is that without the church and without God, you are like horrible and sinful. So I expected to become that. And one of the biggest surprises was when that didn't happen to me, but like really nothing changed in my life, and I could be evil and I also could be good, but like now it was my choice. But yeah, the one of the biggest surprises was how much more compassionate I felt for other people.
Oh, like
it surprised me.
You kind of thought you were already compassionate and loving.
Yes,
so
totally.
much so. But then you're like, wait, I wasn't even like hitting like the major area of this.
No,
I was only just scratching
off.
The surface.
Totally.
Is what I meant to say.
Yeah. So that's been great. It's been great to experience more empathy and compassion within myself, and like be able to step into other people's shoes more easily, and be able to understand other people's perspectives more easily, because I'm way more open and I'm softer, and I'm just more like fluid, you know. But you don't realize that you're not fluid. You don't realize that you're not soft while you're a Christian.
Exactly.
You know, you think you're soft. I thought I was soft. I thought I was really loving. And I mean, as a Christian, I think I was really loving. It's not like I was an evil person as a Christian, but it's just like in my mind, I think about everything a little bit differently. It's just, there's like that little bit less judgment, a little bit less rigidity, a little more fluidity, a little more softness, a little more compassion, a little bit more understanding. And it's amazing. It's the opposite feeling of how I thought I was going to feel as an atheist, like a cold, hard, bitter, cynical person. It's like the opposite of that. So much less those things without religion.
Another thing that I really noticed was how the people in like the non-religious or atheism camp were working a lot more for human rights. Like it's the first time coming out of religion was the first time I kind of heard the whole humanism thing. I'm not going to define it right now because I don't know if I'll do it correctly, but just like caring about human needs. And it's more about caring about the now, you know, like as a Christian, we always cared about the eternal.
Yeah.
And like, but we neglected the now. And I feel that with people that like, I really noticed that humanism was connected to like non-religiousness or atheism in a way. And I think that I maybe discovered I am a humanist and just like that, I want to just care about people and like how we are now.
Yeah. Right. That's actually a really good point because I always felt like as a Christian, the way for me to care about someone in the best possible, most loving way was to tell them about Jesus and try to get them to convert because then they're going to be taken care of for eternity. But like, because I thought that was the best way for me to help them, I wouldn't like human rights stuff and like social activism and all of that seemed like nonsense to me. It seemed pointless. Like, why do we care about like people's rights so much or like social issues because that stuff doesn't even matter at all compared to their salvation. So like, let's focus on their salvation, you know, that's what I always thought. So I was always like projecting into the future, looking to somewhere else, kind of trying to like fix this invisible eternal problem. And by doing that, I was ignoring all of the actual real problems that are right in front of me today, right now.
Yeah.
Actually, in like, an extension of that is just how much more mental space I have to be in the moment right now, period. Because as a Christian, how crazy is it? I was like constantly thinking about how there's spiritual warfare, like literally thought there were like demons and angels invisibly flying around my head, like trying to fight over me all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm preoccupied with that. I'm preoccupied with my sin and trying to be holy. And I'm preoccupied with eternity and trying to do good for the kingdom.
And where does all of this information come from, Joe?
The Bible.
Dude. And where did that come from?
I don't know.
Who wrote it?
I don't know.
When was it written?
I don't know.
How many authors wrote for it?
I don't know.
What order is it supposed to be in?
I don't know.
And how many books are left out of it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's our faith based on?
I don't know.
Okay.
What my parents say? Yeah. But I mean, like that is a huge problem, obviously, all the Bible stuff. But like, what a relief it is now to not have to be so preoccupied with things outside of the current moment, you know? Like I'm here with you in this room right now and I'm not
And we're having a lovely conversation.
We are. And I'm not thinking about eternity anymore. I'm not thinking about the ghosts flying around the room. I'm not thinking about like sin and redemption. You know, those concepts, maybe they're helpful to some people. Maybe I thought they were helpful to me, but like, regardless of what you think, they're very taxing. Like they take up space in your brain. They take up time in your thoughts, you know?
I mean, but people want that. I can't help but think about like,
I wanted it.
I
wanted to fill my brain with it, but like, it was making me so non-present, you know? Now I'm trying to live in the moment as much as possible and like be absolutely engaged and present in the present moment. And that's like the opposite goal I had as a Christian, which was to distract myself with invisible God as much as I could. How weird.
I know. I keep thinking about like how, like I never would have imagined what this was going to be like, you know, to be a non-Christian.
Yeah. You can't imagine what it's like outside of a cage that you don't even know you're in, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to say was, like in the beginning, we were talking about how we used to think it takes more faith to be an atheist than a Christian. And And it's become like really clear to me now that that's like totally wrong way to frame it. Because there is no faith required. That's the other part of this that is such a relief, is that I didn't like, it's such a relief to not have to have faith anything, to not have to continue propping up my faith, to not have to like continue praying and doing all this stuff to make sure that my belief is strong. And as a Christian, I didn't realize how much like mental energy I was putting into maintaining my faith and like keeping my belief in God, even though I don't see him in my life. But like when you get out of it and you become an atheist and you start to realize or start to believe there is no God, then it's like such a relief to not have to live my life by faith in any area anymore. Like if I see something with my eyes and I experience it, then I say, oh, I believe that is there. And if I don't see it with my eyes and I don't experience it for myself, then I say I have no reason to believe that, so I'm not going to. Easy. It's like, it's so simple, you know?
Yeah, I feel like cognitive dissonance is a term that I never knew, you know, the meaning of until like this point, because like never realizing how much of my knowledge or, you know, how I was suspending things, like keeping myself from being logical. I never like realized, you know.
But when you think about it, it's hard to be a Christian. It's like, it's hard to have faith because you are needing to maintain your faith in the face of all of this evidence that's like telling you that you shouldn't have your faith.
Well, that's why, I mean, that's why they say faith is a virtue, and they think that keeps people in because they feel it should be that way.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, that's what keeps you from listening to your doubts, is knowing that you're going to be attacked. You know,
knowing
it's like
that it's going to be super hard.
It's the perfect system to keep you inside because it says when you think about leaving, it's actually an attack from the enemy.
Right.
You know, so like, why would you leave?
Gosh,
it's like the perfect
such a
trap. It's, you know, I'm not in any belief system now in my life that says I'm not allowed to leave or question.
Yeah.
Because that is a jail.
Like I am encouraged to question. I love questioning things now. It's amazing. It feels so good that I can question anything in my life completely freely without any hesitation. That's amazing. Like it feels like my brain is being used to its full capacity. And it almost seems like a crime against humanity to have this faith helmet on, which is like keeping your logical thinking so pushed down and so conditioned and so like capped, you know?
Yeah, so I feel like that thing about you need more faith to be an atheist was not the case.
It's just like a bad understanding of what it means to be an atheist.
Yeah, I think, yes, I kind of feel that like you're maybe in Christianity taught a false perception, you know, of what it is to be non-religious.
Right.
And I didn't even know that I was learning that or knew that. And I was totally surprised that I had this completely wrong perception of a type of people.
Yeah.
You know, like of a person who I thought was just against me for the purpose of being my enemy, you know?
Yeah. Didn't give them any credit. I guess, you know, the reason why probably a lot of Christians, and maybe myself included, would have said that it takes more faith to be an atheist is like the problem of creation or the problem of the origin of all of this, you know? So in that sense, in a way, I can see what Christians are saying, because if you have an alternative, like, so we have this hard question of where did I come from? It's much easier to live your life with like a direct, perfect answer for that.
Yeah.
Like not perfect, but you know what I mean? Like an answer that just plugs right into that question and kind of takes care of it. That is easier than to live as an atheist and kind of have to just sit with the unknown. So like in that sense, it is maybe more difficult to be an atheist. And I think that since Christians think that atheism is like another religion, and they think that they're basing their understanding of like where we came from on faith, then Christians think, well, it takes more faith for me to think that all of this came from nothing than it does for me to say, oh, a God who knows how to design worlds designed it. Like, yeah, sure. Your Christian explanation is maybe like easier to understand than either a scientific explanation or no explanation. But that doesn't mean that you're right. You know?
You know what I just thought is that are they actually having faith if they have an answer to the question? Like, isn't that to them fact or truth?
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like they don't even have faith. They have something.
They just have an answer.
Telling them to do something. So it's not even very virtuous.
Yeah. I mean, it's faith in the sense that they don't have any like evidence in the world to support their belief, except that there are words that say that in a book.
I know, but that's not even faith.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I don't think that it takes faith to be an atheist. I mean, that's like the definition of being an atheist is I'm not taking anything on faith. I'm only believing things based on evidence, which doesn't require faith. So yeah, doesn't take any faith to be an atheist.
It's funny, like, talking about all this stuff now, because I know that I've heard atheists say all of these things before, but kind of it was like, oh, that's such an atheist thing to say. And, but now it's like, I completely understand them and I feel bad for judging them.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. There are, I guess, some things that maybe Christians were right about what it's like being an atheist. And so like an example of that is, as a Christian, I felt like atheists had no reason to live and had like no meaning in their life. And when we first left the church and first kind of started doubting our faith, that was like true for us. That was really difficult for me to go from having an ultimate purpose and like meaning in every single thing and every thought that I had to no meaning and no purpose. That is super jarring. I think what maybe I didn't understand is that you can find meaning and like you can create purpose for yourself. And that like me creating a purpose for myself is more meaningful and beautiful and like spiritual than just some book telling you this is what you need to do. You know what I mean?
I think it goes along, as you were just saying that, I had this thought because that was a really hard part for us, but it goes along with the whole analogy of coming out of Christianity, of like closing the umbrella that was pouring rain on you, or coming out of the bubble, is that you realize that there's not one way to have that purpose. Yeah. That like you were taught how to have purpose. Like you were almost taught what it means to have purpose, and only a purpose that would fit into that like perfect mold would count as a purpose to you. But you had to open up your mind to see that there are other ways to define things. Yeah. I think the biggest thing, and like I maybe would have thought that this was corny before, but it's that there's not different lanes of what is right and what is wrong. There are no lanes, and there's a lot of different answers a lot of times. I'm not like talking about so much as like there's a truth or like the ultimate truth or anything, but like even just day to day, like there are not always just a right way and a wrong way. Like if you have the Christian purpose, that's the right kind of purpose. And if you don't, that's the wrong. Yeah. And like we had to learn that. And that's why we eventually were able to like have a purpose again and sit with that feeling. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
Cool. Because as a Christian, I felt like if an atheist were to come up with their own life purpose, that was somehow way, way less valid than valid. Mine. But how weird, how backwards is that? Like, assume someone's an atheist and they like have strong opinions about the world and they have their own worldview and they come up with their own life purpose and they like dedicate themselves to working towards their purpose. How amazing is that? You know, that's so cool. And as a Christian, I thought that was like dumb and that was meaningless and that was made up. You mean like that's
a really disciplined purpose,
like discipline
person?
Yeah, sure, discipline, but also just like that's such a beautiful like expression of humanhood, you know? But for some reason as a Christian I thought that was like dumb and meaningless, and what actually had meaning was just following some rules that were written down thousands of years ago,
just being a follower.
Yeah, how weird is that? You know, it seems so backwards to me now. It's like I've completely flipped on that.
I think that's like the whole part, like the main theme of this episode is how much we've like really flipped and how like, I don't know. It's weird. Do you ever feel like kind of embarrassed that we're like, oh, sorry, we were wrong about Christianity?
I used to, but now I feel like kind of excited by that because I feel like I have permission to be wrong. You know, as a Christian, there's no room to be wrong about any of it. Because like if you're wrong, you're going to suffer in hell for all of eternity. Now I kind of don't care if I'm wrong because like, of course I'm wrong, you know, even now as we're talking, like, of course I'm wrong about some of the stuff I'm saying. maybe there's not even a right and wrong, period. You know, maybe I'm thinking of it in the wrong way. But like, it feels good to be able to be wrong and like admit that. And like, yeah, maybe I was wrong in the past. I changed my mind because I got new information, whatever.
I know, like, and how normal that is and how it should be normal.
Yeah. And we should like celebrate people who are admitting that they were wrong in the past.
Wait, so
like,
you're saying that you want to celebrate us?
Yeah. Hell yeah. You know, but seriously, like, I really respect people who can come out and say, yeah, I was super wrong before. This is what I know now. When I was a Christian, I was like really upset if somebody were to ever change their mind about something, like, oh, you're not consistent, or like,
yes,
your belief is that weak.
Feel that, you know? Too.
It's just so weird.
Yeah, like you're too weak in your belief if you change your mind.
Yeah.
And that's like another thing. That's like something that we learned. I mean, that like, yeah, like you should question what you are saying and what you're doing frequently, because the world is evolving and changing. It's changing within the last freaking 100 years. Like, you don't need
in the last 3 years. Yeah. I mean, like, if you're not changing your mind about things often, I feel like something's off.
There's nothing consistent.
Right.
Like, so that, like, it just seems like that's a poor model.
Yeah. The only constant is change, right?
Oh.
I really like that saying, and I think it applies here too.
Oh, I definitely think so.
Yeah.
Because it's using two of the same words that we were just using.
That's true. We can wrap up soon here. But since Thanksgiving is coming up, I kind of wanted to talk about how being an atheist has made me so much more appreciative.
Ah, that's a good way to wrap this up, Joe.
As Christians, I think we gave so much credit. We like took credit from people and gave it to God all the time when it was actually just people. So like at your dinner table on Thanksgiving, make sure that you make it a point to really thank the people who actually made the food. Like, thank your mom for spending hours like preparing and thinking about Thanksgiving and cooking the food, as opposed to sitting down and being like, God, thank you for giving us this food. When actually God didn't do anything.
Yeah,
you worked, your parents worked for the money. You worked for the money. The farm workers like planted the seeds. Whatever people came and harvested it. And there's people who drove it to the store, and the people at the store put it out. You know, like, it's people who gave you that stuff.
Amen.
Amen.